You may. You don't have to be shy, but if you're shy, it's okay, you have a pledge card to continue the donation. Now, our guest speaker is usually introduced not only by her first and last name, Lauren Booth. Who is Lauren Booth? Very few may know her. But when you say she is the sister-in-law of the former Prime Minister of England, they say, oh, I know who she is. In a way, this reminds me of my own experience. I say, I'm Arif Assad. They say, who? I say, I'm the husband of Ilham Assad. Oh, I know who you are. So this kind of brings some memories. But our speaker, since she'll be telling you her own personal story in her own way, I don't need to tell you much about her. But she hails from Great Britain. She calls herself a revert to Islam rather than a convert to Islam. And there is a linguistic, meaningful implication to that. She, like as we are told in Islam, mankind and men and women are born Muslim. They may not grow up to be Muslim, but it is the fitra, it is the nature of mankind to believe in Allah and to submit to the will of Allah. This is an experience that hopefully will challenge some stereotypes that we as born Muslims have about revert Muslims or vice versa. She will challenge you back and forth about it by sharing her experience with you. Hopefully you will want to explore that and see how lucky you are or unlucky you are that you were born Muslim, but that she had to struggle to find her way back into Islam. She is unlike many Muslims who find their way back to Islam because she lives Islam. She is a public figure. It is not easy for somebody like our sister to be a living example of Islam. But as you can see, she is a heroine. She has struggled and she has succeeded in living Islam the way she believes needs to be lived. So, without further ado, I would like you with a great warm welcome invite our sister Lauren Booth to speak to us about her personal story into Islam. Sister Lauren Booth.
Takbir!
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this gathering and allow us all to gain some knowledge and closeness to Him this evening, and to bless our seeking of knowledge and our love for Him that has brought us all here this evening. Ameen. Ameen.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's very nice to be here. I've already had a wonderful greeting from my sisters. Thank you so much. And really, sometimes when I'm getting ready in the evening and I pass a mirror on my way out the door, and I look at myself and I think, who is that middle-aged Arab woman? Is that me? Really? How did that happen? Because after 2 years of being a Muslim, it's still a surprise for me that to shed everything that went before. And I can't quantify how that happened, but I can tell you how it happened. So this evening, inshallah, I would like to share my own personal journey to Islam. Bismillah. I grew up in the 1970s in London, England. Yes, I really am that old. Once upon a time, people used to gasp when I said that. Not anymore, alhamdulillah. My father was a Catholic, a lapsed Catholic. So he used to sing Catholic songs after he'd been down the pub. And my mom was a superstitious Christian, which meant that she would never go to church and she would never pray, but she liked to hang crucifixes around to ward off evil spirits. But when I was a child, what I remember is how I used to pray. Nobody had to explain to me that in my world as a 7-year-old, there was a hierarchy. And the hierarchy went, my father at the bottom, and my mother at the top, then my grandfather, and then my grandmother at the top. But who was making all the decisions? To me, it was God. One God. So I remember going to bed at night and I would pray, you know, simple things when you're little. Like, please, dear God, take my younger sister away. Make her go just for a few days and then bring her back, please. It's easy when you're young and your heart is pure. Even if you're not surrounded by people who are praying, it's easy to believe in the unseen because you feel it. And I felt it very strongly. But growing up in a secular Western society and keeping a hold of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the rope of Iman, the rope of faith, this is hard. So 7, I was praying. 8 years old, I was praying. 9-year-old, I was praying. 11, you start secondary school. You get bigger. And when girls come to stay at your house and they say, it's bedtime, you start to pray, dear God, they go, what are you doing? You say, I'm praying. They go, what, to the big man with the beard in the sky? Like Santa Claus is up there. And you feel stupid, and you feel embarrassed, and your cheeks go red, and you think, yeah, why would I do that? Then I remember when I was 13, and all the temptations come in, and your body changes, and your mind changes, and your ego kicks in again. And you think that you're the center of the universe, because you're clever. Clever, right? Old people are stupid. You know everything, and they've forgotten everything. So I thought I was brilliant. And then the ego kicks in, and you know what? There's an arrogance in this world so much now, that's always been there, but is very strong again now. We think we're too clever to have God. Think about that. We have intellectualized God out of his own universe. 13, 14, 15, that's where I was. 16 onwards, I was just taking drugs and getting drunk like everybody else at my school. Doing all of those things. But still somewhere in my heart, when I was low or lonely, I'd pray. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us in the Quran? The drowning man will always call to me. But what happens when you get to the beach? You think it's you that got yourself there, and how clever you are. So I wasn't looking for God. I knew God existed, but I'd pushed him to the corner of the universe like every other secular Christian. It was easy. So what brought Allah to me, and me to Allah? Every revert gets asked this question, and often we don't know the answer at first. So you get asked, what was the moment? What's the moment that you felt God in your life? Well, I can tell you the moment when I felt something change inside me. It was in the year 2000. I was watching my television at home. I had a new little baby girl, my first child, Alexandra. She was about a month old. And on my television screen, a picture came up from a place I'd never heard of. Well, I'd heard of it a little bit, a place called Palestine. It was attached to Israel somehow. And the picture stopped me. It was as if I'd been punched in the stomach and all the breath went out of me. And this was the picture. It was of a young boy, 15 years old, and you could only see his back. And he had a stone in his right hand. And he was holding his arm up like this. And I looked at his back, and his head was cocked at an angle that showed no fear. And his back had the might of nations in it. And that stone could destroy any oppressor. And what was amazing about this picture that they showed was that there was a tank just a few feet away from him. That boy's name was Faris Oder. 15 days after that picture was taken, he was shot through the neck by an Israeli sniper and he died. He bled to death. Another unmourned child killed for throwing stones in the Middle East. But that picture changed me. And that picture really is the only reason why in 2005 that I can give you that suddenly I found myself in my editor's office. I was working for a major newspaper called the Mail on Sunday. I went into my editor's office in 2005 and I said, there's going to be an election in Palestine and I'd like to go and cover it for you. Now I was mostly writing about being a mother, a little bit of lifestyle stuff, living in France. I was moving to France. I was definitely not writing about the Middle East. And I never even thought about writing about Palestine. So he should have said, go back to your desk, write me something about haircuts. But instead, he said, go for 2 weeks, we'll pay for everything. You've got 4 pages in the magazine. SubhanAllah. 2 weeks later, in January 2005, I found myself outside Tel Aviv airport. On my own, all I had to get me around, I was trying to get an interview with somebody called Mahmoud Abbas. I didn't really know much about him. Why was I going? I still can't explain this to you. Mahmoud Abbas, okay. I had 3 phone numbers on bits of paper in my pocket. And I was going to Ramallah on my own. Imagine. Can you imagine? So I'm outside Tel Aviv airport and I look for a taxi and a man comes up to me and he says, hi, my name is Jamal, but you can call me Jimmy. I said, hi Jimmy. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to a place called Ramallah. Ramallah? Do you know it? He said, yeah, I've heard of it. I said, okay, can you take me there? He said, I'll take you most of the way. So I got into his car. And over the next hour, Jimmy Jamal gave me a lecture that I think of as Occupation 101. He tried to give me in 63 minutes, 63 years of Palestinian history. It was a pretty good ride in that taxi. I remember a couple of moments when we got past Jerusalem, Al-Quds, the road got bumpier, and up on the hills, I could see the settlements. And I could also see a beautiful road that wasn't bumpy at all and there was nobody on it. So I said to Jimmy Jamal, why don't we use that road? And he said to me, you don't know much about this, do you? He said, that road is for Jews only. If I take you on that road, we'll be dead, shot dead in about 7-8 minutes. Do you want to go that way? I said, no, thank you. We had to go through a checkpoint. He had to leave me there. I walked through on my own. I got a taxi the other side. Columbia, some of the sisters here I met from near Columbia. I got to the hotel room that night and I cried myself to sleep. I hadn't seen anything, but I was already so moved. Because what you don't often hear talked about, when you hear about the guns and the tanks and the terrorists and the Hamas, as they call it, the Hamas. You know what you don't hear about? You don't hear about the barakah of the land. You don't hear that when a foreign person, when any person steps foot in Asham, suddenly you change. Your awareness of different levels of existence, something happens to you. And the people there. The next day, after arriving, I got my interview with Mahmoud Abbas, and I was whisked around by his private guard. It was a bit like being in a movie. Armed men going, talkies. At first I thought it was cool, and I thought, yeah, kind of scary too. I remember at one moment being in a lift with 2 of Mahmoud Abbas's guards. 6'4", 6'5", guns, walkie-talkies. And as they closed the gates of the elevator One of them said into his walkie-talkie, and I thought, I know what he's saying. He's saying, we'll kill the white woman later. I realized that I had Arabophobia, that I was scared of Arabs. These guys had guns, they were the bad guys. I'd read about them, I'd seen them in films, Hollywood films showed me Arabs with guns, Palestinians with guns, Muslims with guns equals dead white woman. What was I doing? Do you know, 3 days in Palestine is enough to wash away everything. It only took me 3 days to fall in love with the people there and realize that I would do anything for them. I remember the day after feeling scared of these guards, I was walking through a place called Manara, which is an area of Ramallah, and I didn't have a coat, and because I didn't know it got cold in Palestine in January. Also, the Israelis had kept my case. That's another story. So I was walking around and an old lady came up to me and she said, "Yalla, yalla, yalla, yalla," like this. She pulled me into her little house. And then she went into a cupboard and she opened it. And she took out a coat and she put it on. And she got a little case and she got out some jumpers. Must have been maybe her daughter was at university, I don't know. She put them in a case. Sealed the case. Wrote her name and number on a piece of paper and gave it to me and said, "Salam alaikum," and pushed me out gently from, and there I was standing in the street going, what was that? If I were to list all the numerous acts of incredible generosity and kindness just on that first trip, we would be here until next year. So I just picked that one because it melted my heart. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for us, can we change that plan? It says in the Quran, what is going to come to you will come to you, whatever, and what is not meant to be for you, you will never get it. So although I was traveling around Palestine, I was there as a political journalist. I wasn't, I told myself, on any spiritual journey. I was what we could say a happy sinner. God was doing his business in the corner of the universe, I was doing my stuff here, we'd sort it out later maybe. But when Allah has a plan for you, you can't avoid this plan, and nor should you try. So in 2007, I got a phone call, and it was from a man called Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is an executive of the Islam channel in Britain. Tunisian man, long beard. I love describing people by beards, it just amuses me. It's a thing you do in Gaza, actually. How long is his beard? Is it, oh, he's okay. Long beard? Oh, long beard. It just means you take them more seriously, by the way. It's a respect thing. Brothers looking at nothing wrong with long beards. Nothing wrong with long beards. I got this call, and Muhammad Ali said to me, "We would like you to be a presenter at the Islam channel." I said, "What?" I said, "But I'm not Muslim." He said, "We noticed, but we still want you to be a presenter." I said to him, "Okay, I'm really interested in this job, but I have two conditions. The first condition is, I'm not going to be Muslim, so please don't try to sell me your religion. I respect your people, and I will work with you, but it's not for me, I'm happy." Muhammad Ali said to me, "Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decide whether or not you're going to be Muslim." I said, "No, he won't, I've decided. I'm not going to be Muslim." Muhammad Ali said, "Allah will decide whether you will be Muslim." I said, "No, he won't." He said, "Allah." I said, "Okay." Agreed to differ. He said, "It's up to Allah." I said, "Stop." I said, "The second thing is, I will never ever wear hijab." Look at the arrogance. It worked. How did that work out for me? I said, "I'm not going to wear hijab on your station because it would make me a hypocrite. If I'm anything, I'm broadly speaking Christian, and I don't think it's right for non-Muslims to be forced into wearing a scarf." He said, "Okay. Wallahi, do you know to this day, I think I'm the only woman ever to appear on the Islam channel as a presenter without hijab. And one day I want to ask this brother, why did you say yes to that? Because I know it caused him problems. Can you imagine this? Did you imagine how his backers were saying, what are you doing? A blonde woman? No hijab? Are you crazy? Allah knows. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for us. That will come our way. So I began working at the Islam channel, and my job took me around the Ummah, meeting some of the greatest clerics and thinkers in Islam today. I remember in 2007 going to Copenhagen to meet a man who is known as the Lion of Palestine. His name is Sheikh Riyad Salah. Yeah, Riyad Salah. I always say his name slightly wrong. Riyad Salah. Salah. Riyad Salah. I was in a foyer of a hotel. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd been working hard doing interviews all day. It was a conference on Palestinian right of return. I'm sitting in a chair like this, and the Lion of Palestine walks up to me like this. And then he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So this is the Lion of Palestine? Surely this is the pussycat of Palestine. This man is a sweet man. How can he be a lion? Totally misunderstood what Islam is about the power of humility, about the power of internal calm, about the power. He was making dhikr. He wasn't there to impress some journalist. Hey, how you doing? I'm a big guy. No. Now, as a Western journalist, we are supposed to think. In our minds, we think. I'll tell you now, if a Muslim man doesn't look at us, we think it's because they hate us. We've been taught a Muslim man doesn't look a woman in the face because women make him sick. Imagine. We make him sick, he's so disgusted by our faces, he wants to vomit, and that is why he doesn't look in your face. What? When I met Sheikh Riyad Salah, and he never looked in my face, he just looked into his hands, I thought, what a wonderful, humble human being. Because there was a sense, something coming from him that I now know is Iman. And although I wasn't on a path to Islam, I was misindependent from religion, I felt it, and I wrote in my diary at the time, I keep a journal, I wrote, tonight I met Sheikh Riyad Salah, and I would rather spend an evening with him than with Johnny Depp. This for me was a very big deal at the time. It was Iman, and you can feel it from people, whether or not you're Muslim. Now Palestine was on my mind all the time during this period, and people and my family kept saying to me, don't get involved in Palestine, you have a nice career. You have a good job, you're a photo byline journalist, it's a bit like being a Hollywood star of newspapers. You know, leave it, don't get involved, it's their problem, leave it. But when you go to Palestine, whenever you leave, I'll give you an example. In 2007, when I went back to Palestine, there was an old lady from Gaza who needed a back operation. She was in a wheelchair. And the Israelis kept getting through the checkpoint, which is like 1.5 kilometers. She had to be pushed in the heat, and they keep saying, no, it's cancelled, and sending her back. They did this for 12 hours in the heat of the day, until she was sobbing, saying to me, why are they doing this? I'm not a terrorist. If I don't fix my back, I don't want to live. And then she looked at me and she said, you're going to leave soon. When you go, please don't forget us. Every morning, you will wake up with that memory. Please don't forget us. In 2008, I got another push in a direction I didn't know I was going. I got a very strange email and it interested me. It was only 2 lines and it said, "Would you like to go to Gaza by boat? If you would, call this number." By this point I had 2 young daughters, both under 6 years of age. I had no business, as the main breadwinner, going to Gaza by boat, which was dangerous. I read it again, "Go to Gaza by boat, call this number, call this number." I couldn't escape it, I called the number. A voice answered, "Hello, Osama here." I thought, blimey, go to Gaza by boat with Osama? Does that sound like a good idea to you? It was a different Osama. I went to my boss again. I said, "I'd like to go to Gaza by boat. What do you think?" He said, "Here's some money. You've got another 4 pages in the magazine." I thought, he must be just trying to get rid of me. This guy doesn't like me. In August 2008, I was in Cyprus with 44 Europeans, Americans and Australians who were non-Muslims, all of whom put our lives on hold to get into 2 worthless, rubbish pieces of junk that were pushed out into the sea, called boats, in order that we could challenge the illegal sea blockade of the Gaza Strip, because none of us wanted to live in a world where 1.8 million people are kept on almost starvation rations, where their food and their water is polluted, where they are bombed, where they are not allowed their human rights or their rights to travel. And we just wanted to challenge that and say the outside world does care. I found out last week, I did an interview with Greta Berlin. She's from Los Angeles. She started the Free Gaza movement, the boats to Gaza, she started it. She said to me, "Did you know that the wheel of the Free Gaza was on upside down? That's how bad the boats were." I said, "Yeah, I remember. If you turned to the right, it went left. And if trying to go forward, it went backwards." So when people say, "How come the Israelis didn't blow you up?" They thought we were going to blow up by ourselves. They were laughing. They were laughing so hard, they couldn't get their helicopter out. But you know what? We got on those ships. We made the 36-hour crossing. Everybody was sick. So sick. And then on midday, on the 23rd of August 2008, our Irish skipper climbed up and he said the words, "Land ahoy," and there was Gaza, climbing out of the mist. We'd made it. We'd got past the Israelis, and we could show the people of Gaza that the outside world cared. And as we got closer, we could see spots on the horizon, and we were squinting, going, "What are they?" And as we got closer, we saw they were people. Tens of thousands of Palestinians had crammed onto the docks. And then we got a bit closer and we heard a sound. What's that sound? Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Floating across the sea towards our little ships. It was the most beautiful day of our lives. Children were pulled up onto the boat by their scarves. The boats nearly sank. There were so many Gazans on them by the time we got to shore. We were all meant to leave 5 days later. My children were calling saying, "Mummy, when are you coming home?" We were speaking on Skype. But you know what? I stood on the dock watching those boats leave. And I can't explain to you why I did that. The only way out of Gaza for me was on those boats. And as I waved them goodbye, I thought, what am I doing? But guess what the month was? Ramadan. Ramadan. And I ended up having to stay for 30 days and nights of Ramadan in Gaza. SubhanAllah, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every single day of my life that I got to spend 30 days with the most